Do you think today's Hollywood scandals are wild? Think again. The past was way darker, when studios had the power to silence crimes, cover up shocking affairs, and protect the guilty. From concealing misconduct with minors to scandalous affairs with colleagues, here are 10 shocking scandals that Hollywood tried to hide. Number 1. Errol Flynn's trial. It would be a surprise if Errol Flynn didn't make it on this list. The leading man of Hollywood's golden age became as famous for his off-screen escapades as for his on-screen heroics. His 1943 statutory trial is one of the early scandals that tested Hollywood's ability to protect its stars in the face of serious allegations. The scandal began when two underage girls, Betty Hansen and Peggy Satterlee, accused Flynn of unlawful intercourse. The allegations emerged in 1942, claiming that the incidents occurred at Flynn's home in Hollywood and aboard his yacht, respectively. Hansen was 17 and Satterlee was 16 at the time of the alleged offenses. Flynn was charged, and that charge carried significant social stigma and legal consequences. The trial that ensued drew enormous media attention both nationally and internationally. Warner Brothers, the studio under contract with Flynn, provided substantial support to him during the trial. They hired the best available legal representation, and Flynn's team worked to shape public perception, painting Flynn as being victimized by opportunistic accusers. Flynn was acquitted in 1943 after a highly publicized trial, and his attorney, Jerry Giesler, discredited the accusers' testimonies based on their behavior and supposed motivations. The trial's outcome was influenced by the cultural and social norms of the time, which often blamed the victims and placed the burden of proof heavily on the accusers. Number 2. The Black Dahlia murder. The death of Elizabeth Short is one of Hollywood's most notorious unsolved mysteries. This case was not only infamous for its brutality, but also for the various connections and rumors linking it to Hollywood figures, which led to efforts within the industry to suppress or control the narrative surrounding it. Elizabeth Short's murder in January 1947 was particularly gruesome. Her body was found mutilated and bisected at the waist in a vacant lot in Los Angeles. The nature of her death and her connections to the Hollywood social scene fueled intense public and media interest. Short's connections within Hollywood were well documented. She was known to socialize with various figures in the industry, which led to speculation about her relationships with influential men, including some well-known studio personalities and movie stars. Hollywood studios were concerned about being dragged into the fray if any of their contracted stars or prominent executives were implicated. Despite extensive investigations, no one was ever charged with Elizabeth Short's murder. Charlie Chaplin's relationships. Charlie Chaplin, probably Hollywood's most iconic figure in its golden age era, was involved in several relationships with young actresses, which Hollywood tried to keep hidden due to the potential scandal and backlash that could tarnish his public image and the film industry's reputation. Charlie Chaplin was fast becoming a worldwide star, and his fame and influence in the industry were immense, giving him significant power and leeway in his personal and professional life. He was known for his relationships with younger women, which began to surface publicly as his fame grew. His first high-profile romance was with Edna Purviance, who was 19 when she met 26-year-old Chaplin. This relationship, though not scandalous by today's standards, set the stage for his more controversial involvements. Chaplin met and married Mildred Harris when she was just 16, and he was 29. The marriage was troubled and ended in a public and messy divorce. In his mid-30s, Charlie married Lita Gray in haste after getting her pregnant. The marriage ended in a highly scandalous divorce that included accusations of Chaplin's inappropriate behavior and demands. Perhaps his most enduring relationship was with Una O'Neill, whom he married when he was 54, and she was 18. Despite the significant age gap, this relationship lasted until Chaplin's death and was seen as a loving and stable partnership. Number 5. The death of George Reeves. The mysterious death of George Reeves, best known for his role as Superman in the 1950s. Television series Adventures of Superman has puzzled fans and historians alike for decades. Reeves died from a gunshot wound in 1959 at his home in Los Angeles, and the circumstances surrounding his death have led to numerous theories and speculations. His death was ruled a suicide by the police, but the circumstances raised several questions, as there were no fingerprints on the gun found at the scene, which was unusual for a suicide. He died during the early hours while guests were still in the house, adding layers of complexity and conflicting testimonies about the events leading to the discovery of his body. The official verdict was suicide, supported by his apparent depression over his typecasting and career challenges. Some believed that Reeves's death was accidental, possibly at the hands of one of the party guests. The studios were concerned about protecting their investments and maintaining a sanitized image of their stars. Reeves's death, whether a suicide or murder, could tarnish the wholesome image associated with Superman, potentially impacting ongoing projects and related revenues. As a result, there was an effort to downplay the mysterious aspects of his death in the press, focusing instead on his supposed personal troubles, or framing the incident as a clear-cut case of suicide. Number 6. Lana Turner and Johnny Stompanato. The story of Lana Turner and Johnny Stompanato involves a mixture of glamour, scandal, and violence, encapsulating some of the darkest aspects of Hollywood's golden era. Turner and Stompanato's relationship began in 1957 and was marked by volatility and violence. Stompanato was reportedly abusive and possessive, and the relationship was fraught with intense arguments and disturbances. Despite this, Turner was hesitant to end the relationship due to Stompanato's violent temper and threats. The relationship reached a tragic climax on the evening of April 4, 1958, during a heated argument between Turner and Stompanato at Turner's Beverly Hills home. Stompanato was stabbed to death. The knife was wielded by Turner's 14-year-old daughter, Cheryl Crane, who later claimed she was defending her mother from Stompanato's violent threat. Hollywood's power structures, including studio executives and public relations teams, were immediately mobilized to control the narrative. Studios were concerned about protecting Turner's image as a leading lady and sought to mitigate any damage to her career that could arise from her association with a known criminal and the violent nature of the incident. Number 7. Judy Garland's mistreatment. The abuse of child stars in Hollywood is a well-documented aspect of the industry. Judy Garland was signed to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer at just 13 years old and quickly became one of Hollywood's most famous faces. From the outset of her career, Garland was subjected to extreme pressures regarding her appearance, weight, and performance. MGM controlled every aspect of her life, including her physical appearance. She was placed on a strict diet, and studio doctors prescribed her amphetamines to maintain her energy during long days of filming, and barbiturates to help her sleep at night. Garland's schedule was grueling. As a young actress, she was expected to work long hours, often through illness and exhaustion. The studio system prioritized production schedules over the well-being of its stars. The studio's public relations machinery crafted a public persona for Garland, one that contradicted the reality of her situation. They presented her as a happy, carefree star, which was far from the truth. Number 8. Walt Disney and Nazis. Walt Disney's meeting with Leni Riefenstahl in 1938 is a major example of Hollywood's complicated relationship with politics and public perception. Riefenstahl was a German film director, best known for her work in Nazi propaganda films, including Triumph of the Will. She visited Hollywood in 1938, shortly after the infamous Night of Broken Glass, a massive coordinated attack on Jews throughout the Nazi Reich. During her visit, she met with several filmmakers and studio heads, Walt Disney being among them. Disney reportedly gave Riefenstahl a tour of his studio, an action that drew much disapproval from many prominent figures in the industry, including a significant number of Jewish executives and creatives, who refused to meet with her due to her association with the Nazi regime. Disney's decision to meet with Riefenstahl was not widely publicized at the time and remained a relatively obscure fact until well after World War II. Hollywood did all it could to hide the meeting because, at the time, the United States had not yet entered World War II, but awareness of and opposition to Nazi ideologies were growing. Hollywood, as an industry heavily influenced by Jewish talent, was particularly sensitive to any associations with Nazi sympathizers, and Disney, as a leading figure in American entertainment, was especially cautious about his public image. Number 9. Fatty Arbuckle's trials. Hollywood will always remember the scandal surrounding Roscoe, Fatty Arbuckle, as it may have been the first major scandal in the American film industry. The repercussions of his trials were far-reaching, affecting not only Arbuckle's career, but also the reputation and operations of Hollywood as a whole. The scandal began over Labor Day weekend in 1921 during a party in a San Francisco hotel hosted by Arbuckle. Virginia Rapp, a young actress, became fatally ill at the party and died 4 days later due to peritonitis caused by a ruptured bladder. Arbuckle was accused of assaulting Rapp, which allegedly led to her injuries. Arbuckle faced 3 trials between 1921 and 1922. The first 2 trials resulted in hung juries and widespread media coverage. The third trial ended in an acquittal and even included a formal written statement from the jury, apologizing to Arbuckle for the ordeal he had been subjected to. Despite his acquittal, the damage to his public image was irreversible. At the time of Arbuckle's trials, Hollywood was still in its formative years. In response to his case and other scandals, Hollywood began to implement what would become known as the Hays Code, a set of moral guidelines for the production of films. Number 10. The death of actress Natalie Wood. In 1981, during a weekend boat trip to Santa Catalina Island on the yacht Splendor, Natalie Wood drowned. Also on board were her husband, Robert Wagner, actor Christopher Walken, and the boat's captain, Dennis Davern. The official story initially reported to authorities was that Wood accidentally fell into the water and drowned. However, details revealed by subsequent investigations have cast doubt on this narrative. There were reports of a heated argument between Wagner and Wood, and differing statements about when Wood was noticed missing. The autopsy report noted that Wood had bruises on her body and arms, as well as an abrasion on her left cheek, but it was unclear whether these occurred before her death or as she struggled in the water. Wood was reportedly not a strong swimmer, which raised questions about how she ended up in the water in a life jacket. After the initial investigation by authorities, friends, family, and fans, we're left with many questions, partially due to the lack of a thorough investigation at the time, and the vague and often conflicting accounts of those last seen with her. In 2011, the case was reopened after the boat's captain, Dennis Davern, publicly stated he had lied during the initial investigation and that a fight between Wagner and Wood had occurred the night she disappeared.